In today's episode of the Accidental CEO podcast, I talked to my dear friend Maddy Meharis. She's a wedding photographer in Tampa, and we talked about her journey in the dynamics of working with clients. Maddy shares her accidental CEO story, starting from her photography career in the military and eventually transitioned to full-time photography. She talks about the importance of building connections with clients and evoking true emotions at the wedding day and during any sessions that you have with your clients. We also talked about how she prepares her clients for the wedding day, manages their expectations, and adapt to unexpected circumstances. She highlights her significance of balancing intuition in a shot list, as well as the impact of perfecting lighting in her photography. In this conversation, as a wedding photographer, she shares a lot of her tips and strategies of being successful and running a well-oiled machine in her wedding business. I hope you enjoy it. Welcome to the Accidental CEO podcast, where we bridge the gap between the creativity you love and the CEO mindset you need. I'm your host, Nata Salvatori, wedding photographer and business educator. Find full show notes and resources at accidentalceopod.com. Let's get into today's episode. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Accidental CEO podcast. Today, I have a very special friend with me. We have known each other for a little while, Maddy Meharis. She is in Tampa. She's the wedding photographer for Madness Photography. And she's going to tell us all about just the dynamics of getting really connected with your clients, evoking true emotions, and some of the ins and outs of being an amazing wedding photographer. Maddy, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. So I think we met, we were just talking a little bit before we press record, back in 2020, right before the world tried to end on us, right?
We went out with a bang at Creative Summit. Who would have known?
Yes, that was one of the last few things we did before we couldn't get together with people anymore. So that was a great group of people that it's amazing how I still keep in contact with a lot of people that we met at that time. Even though it was 2 to 3 days and a lot of new people, it was a lot of us that kind of stay connected. So I'm glad that we bumped into each other at that time.
Me too. And I feel the same. Like, I am shocked at how many people I still talk to from there. And I mean, we're not that, like, we're a good 4 hours away from each other, but it's nice to see how many people in Florida made it.
Yes. So tell us a little bit about you first, your story. How did you end up in photography? Did you have a life before photography? So how did you end up owning your own business? Tell us your accidental CEO story.
Well, it was definitely accidentally. I actually started photography in the military. I had a different job and I couldn't do that job anymore because I was pregnant. I couldn't handle the type of materials that I was working with. And I always had a camera in my hand. And so the next thing you know, they're like, guess what? You're now a photographer. And I got out of the military when my son was about a year old. Actually, I went into the reserves and started going back to college to get another degree and do a couple of other things. Got divorced, moved from North Carolina to Florida, and went back to school again. Just the perks of being in the military here is you get education paid for. So I was like, I'm just going to go as much as I can go. And I was doing photography on the side, but not really making any money. Just like when my friends needed photos, or like a random person was like, hey, I'll pay $100 to take pictures of our family. And, you know, back then you're like, cool, $100.
Yeah.
Yeah, these are kind of suck now that I look back, but it's $100. And I graduated with another bachelor's degree and was working in family services. And it just is a really, really tough job. It's incredibly emotionally stressful, and it's not a lot of money, and you don't do it for the money, but I was doing photography on the side and making almost the same amount of money, barely part-time, as I was with my job. And one day I went to switch where I was working for, like, a new company, and I just had like a complete meltdown. I was trying on clothes for court in the fitting room, and I just sat on the bench in Nordstrom rack and just started crying. And I was like, no, like, I'm just going to do photography full time. That's it. And I come from a lot of entrepreneurs. My family's immigrants, and anyone who knows a little bit about immigration, a lot of people come to the U.S. and start businesses because it's one way to be here. And although my family, some of them are refugees, like it's just it's what's in my blood. And so my dad was like, "Well, you're a single parent. You got a divorce. If this doesn't work, you're going to have to get a real job." And I scared myself. And so I quit my job, but took two part time jobs so I could do photography full time. And then COVID hit a couple years later, and I dropped all the other jobs. It was like right after we met, and my business just took off. I mean, truthfully, COVID was my busiest year, and we couldn't work for like a quarter of the year. But it also taught me balance that year because it was so nice to just take what you can. And my son has an immune deficiency, and so being home and being limiting on what I was taking really taught me a big lesson. Just that's it. Never looked back. Now I have a studio with a couple of associates, and I mean it's pretty awesome. It just oops.
That's great. So you actually took pictures in the military, like some action shots?
Yeah,
Yeah, so you talked a little bit about the transition between doing that and actually working with your clients. So let's go there a little bit.
sure. So I think photography can be an outlet for a lot of us artists. It's not just a business for a lot of us. It's like I don't know, just something happens to you and your camera's in your hand and you're getting ready to take a picture. And for me in the military, you get to capture some really cool stuff, but there's this big emphasis on just pushing through things and you push the emotion aside. Really, the only time you experience like real raw emotion that can be discussed or talked about or shown is homecomings. Like when people were coming home from deployments and the families, like, I mean, Jacksonville's a military town too, so I'm sure you guys have experienced it. And outside of that, like, it was no time for me to capture something and process what I captured and all those fun, like being in the back of a plane, photographing people jumping out of it. You just didn't have time to think about it. And so when I got out, I started using it as a way to showcase my emotions without being emotional, I guess. And then it just kind of taught me to be emotional and to get emotional with my clients and to connect with them on a different level, to like just draw that out of them. And I mean, there's always 7 degrees of separation at least. So there's always something you can connect with someone on. And why not make it something that just fuels you?
So weddings can be pretty hectic and emotional, for everyone involved. Can you talk us through a little bit of how you prep your clients for the wedding day, especially when it comes to helping them be more at ease and more comfortable?
Well, I think for us, there's a lot of us in this industry where, we start with a phone call. We don't really book clients without it. We just get to know them. For us, we really love complimentary engagement sessions because it's a way to see the client's love language and how they interact with their partner and how what they're comfortable with. Like if they're really comfortable with kissing or like just holding hands is good for them. Like how can we have them just hold hands but still connect more? And I think the biggest thing is to just for me, I joke a lot with my clients and then we get real. So like one thing I do in sessions is I have my clients like belly to belly and I have them look at each other and tell each other the first time they knew they loved each other. And you just sit back with a camera, almost like you're not even there for us. And you learn so much about them. And even on our discovery call, we have a questionnaire we go through. We learn about their favorite movies and ice cream and just really weird things. I mean, a lot of my clients like The Office, so we can like joke a lot about that. Just getting to know them prior to the wedding and just I feel like sometimes when you work with them and you see them talk to each other, you'll know when the emotions start to happen and you can just be there and just be quiet or say things to bring it out a little bit more.
Yeah, I like that you mentioned a couple of times where you just kind of give them a prompt or something that will evoke that emotion and just sit back and watch and or like you said, be quiet, which I feel like a lot of times where people go wrong is they're constantly trying to direct and talk and they can't they're uncomfortable with the silence, which makes them their clients be uncomfortable with the silence and not taking the time to really feel the emotion, which will then show in the picture. And I feel like you do a really good job with that.
Thanks. And I'm so grateful you said that. Thank you so much. Like it means even more coming from another photographer. And I think there's just a time and a place. Like at Creative, when we met, I taught a posing class, and now I'm sitting here just like, no, I'm just going to exist with them. And so it's just finding that balance of when to do what.
It's a little bit of back and forth. You got to know how to read your clients and know when to, keep things moving, but also know when to sit back and just let them be together. Because that's how you capture the most natural things too. So that's great. So managing client expectations, I talk about that a little bit more. Very crucial in our industry, especially wedding photography. I feel like people are spending a lot of money with us. There's high expectations. There's no do-overs for the big moments. How do you communicate with your clients about what to expect from your photography on the wedding day?
Well, I think it's a process. I think it starts at the initial call. And then for me, I send out a questionnaire 8 weeks out. We're starting to send it 12 weeks out now. It gives us an understanding of who is there that's important, like VIPs of the wedding, and also what things are important to them and what moments are important to them. And once I get that back, we hop on another call. Like I kind of joke, like they're stuck with me for the rest of their life. Like I'm their third wheel, and that we walk through all of that on a call. And I say, hey, like we need to build in some time to pick up your stuff and move it. No one thought about that, or just hey, it's right now I'm working. We have a wedding that it's like a 30-minute drive, except it's spring break and we're going to the beach. And there's one way in and one way out for where this venue is. And it's like, hey, we actually need to plan a whole hour for travel, unfortunately. And saying, hey, like if things get slow at the reception, don't worry, we're going to have the DJ play the conga line if you're worried about people not dancing. Or if you just want people to go sit by the fire, we're going to go over there and make some people cuddle and just have fun and go from there. And so that's kind of how we manage our expectations. And the same of just throughout the wedding day, communicating the process. Like, hey, we have about 30 minutes left. I want you to just sit and take in, what's about to happen. Just have a moment, sit there, fix your dress for me, and just this is it. Your last breath as a single person. Like,
Yeah.
let's go.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really good. I feel like again, understanding how to communicate with your clients, setting those expectations ahead of time, that eliminates the majority of the issues you might run into when it comes to expectations. Just making sure that people understand what's going to happen on the day of the wedding, what to expect after the wedding, all of these things that we don't even think about it anymore because we've been doing it for so long and it's just second nature to us. But for somebody getting married, that's their first time getting married, maybe second time, but for most people, their first time getting married. So they don't know what they don't know. They don't know what's coming. They don't know what that day looks like. So taking the time to just explain those little things makes a huge difference at the end of the day when it comes to setting expectations and making your client happy. So that's great.
I also think too, people learn better from different things. Like you and I can sit here and retain something that we've talked about, but someone else might have to write it down. Like for me, I have to write things down. And so I also have a client portal and it has examples of timelines. Like here's a 6-hour timeline if you have a first look and if you don't have a first look. And, this is fluid. It's going to change. Hair and makeup's probably going to be late, but it's all built in. This is just an idea of what we're going to walk through. And I think that that really helps too, because it works towards another medium of retaining information for people.
So weddings can be sometimes unpredictable, as we know. Can you share a little bit of an experience maybe where you had to adapt very quickly to an unexpected circumstance and how you made sure that the quality of your photographs were not compromised?
I feel like this happens to me a lot, especially us being photographers in Florida, where the weather, you wake up that morning and it's like 75 and sunny, and then you get to the venue and it's so dark, and then it starts to pour in the middle of it. And I think that's one of the things just for us, we're very heavy on flash. We're not afraid. We always just make sure we have some 8200s set up somewhere in the distance we can grab if we need, along with a clear umbrella and we run with it. Or if it's a ceremony, like we had one wedding, they got married on their parents' property, and it's just incredible. It was in Ocala in the middle of horse country. There's horses literally like running right next to it, but there was no additional lighting except for twinkle lights and a clear tent. And so being able to just know lighting and grab it, I think is so important. I also think it can get really hectic when there's not planners, and things definitely go awry. And we, as photographers, end up having to step in. And so when we have these timelines, which, like, obviously you found such an important specialty in making that easy for people with your app,
Yeah.
just having that and knowing at least what's next, and like how do you dip, and it's like dodgeball, like they say, like dip, duck, whatever, dive, like all those. I did not nail that movie quote, but you get what I mean. Just being able to like say, hey, I actually have to run back and pick up flowers because they forgot their flowers, and having my second shooter being strong enough to start photographing without me. Like, it
Hmm.
happens a lot.
Yeah, it's the things that are not listed in our resume, right? The unpredictable things that you have to be ready for. I had one of those 2 weeks ago in one of the weddings. I One of the bridesmaids was putting her dress on, and one of the loops that her straps went through broke. So they were freaking out. I have my wedding emergency kit that I carry with me. I'm sure you have one too. And because the bride wasn't ready yet for her picture, she was finishing some hair and makeup. I told her, I'll take care of it for you. And I stitched her dress on her body, like figure fixed it for her. And she was so grateful and kept telling everybody throughout the entire night how amazing of a photographer I am, when it had nothing to do with my photography skills. It's just because I was willing to be there for her and to be flexible and adapt and, ready to help. So makes a huge difference for sure.
The amount of times I had to use my sewing kit at a wedding, like,
Right?
I use it just as much as my camera. Like, I swear.
Yes, for sure. So you have a really cool concept. You talked about using intuition alongside a shot list, and that's very fascinating and amazing. And if I know that more people need to know about this and use this. How do you balance the two aspects of that during the wedding and make sure that you capture both what is essential for your clients, but also a lot of good, spontaneous, real, and emotional pictures too?
I mean, I definitely think that, as you know, everyone has like an ideal client that's right for them. And when we communicate that through our images and through how our website copy is and how we put ourselves out there, we tend to attract that. But you have to get there first. And I mean, as far as like the intuition goes, I think it's so important to have a balance and to know the client, because there's some clients that I will shoot way more editorial. And as far as like the intuition with the moment, it's mostly relied on prompts. But then there's clients who are just naturally like really playful with each other and funny and have a good sense of humor. And it's knowing what to say and how to be sarcastic with them while having them together instead of at me, if that makes
Yeah.
sense. But I really think it goes off the couple's persona, their vibe, just getting to know them and getting through family formals, because everyone needs those post pictures. I'm just saying, just do this as quick as you can so everyone can go drink. So just give me 20 minutes.
Yes, they will love you
Yeah.
over and over again. Just get through those real quick. Everybody can go have fun, and the fastest and more efficiently you go through the basics, right? Those pictures that everybody has to have. Then the more time you have to be creative and be spontaneous. So being efficient with the basics, I think it helps allows you a lot more creativity at the end of the day.
I agree. And I will say too, I try my best to build it in my workflow to where right after family photos, we go into couples portraits, usually,
Hmm.
as most do. And I start off with the pose stuff just because we're already in that mindset. And then I slowly make jokes with them, bring them out, have them like run towards me or do whatever just to kind of loosen them up. And then they just do their thing usually.
That's great. That's a good way to transition from the very posed family pictures to posed couples pictures to a more, real transition, more emotional transition. That's great. Today's episode is sponsored by Accidental CEO. Are you tired of empty calendars, or worse, feeling like your revenue is capped? I've been there. The truth is, it's insanely frustrating to feel like you're doing everything the experts recommend but never seeing real results for yourself. Stop trying to follow someone else's path. Your business superpowers are completely unique from every other entrepreneur in your area. Let me help you find the key to unlock your wildly profitable business strategy. I focus on one-on-one business and mindset coaching because I truly believe you deserve individualized strategies for your unique business. It's time to get your business thriving. Check out my website for more information at accidentalceo.co. That's accidentalceo.co. So I know just from watching your work throughout the years that we've known each other that you have invested a lot of time in perfecting lighting into your work. How did you think that changed not just the outcome of the product that you deliver to your clients, but overall the client experience and even the bottom line in your business? Has that changed since you implemented a lot more of that into your work?
I definitely think so. The biggest thing is a lot of other photographers will send me referrals because they can't light a venue, or you get out to Ocala in a horse field, or a horse farm, whatever, and there's nothing around. But I think the biggest thing is just I'm not the kind of person that's like, so I'm a big jokester anyway. So any meme that makes fun of someone else, like whether you're a natural light or whether you're big into lighting and flash, like I just love it, period. Because if you can't laugh at yourself, then like for me, what's the point, right? I think it elevated me because one, half the time you don't even recognize there's flash in an image. But two, you want to be able to produce something for your client and let them not be afraid. Half of our job is solving a problem or making them feel at ease and comfortable. And I want them to know, like, I can walk into something and not be afraid that, the lights went out in the venue. Like, we had a wedding in the Keys many years ago. We kept telling the planner it's going to rain, it's going to rain. They didn't listen. Torrential downpour. It was coming in the tent. Yeah, but we just literally held the flash up here, had the trigger here, and the DJ literally lifted up his DJ booth and went for it, and everything kept going. And just having that flexibility and having the diversity, sometimes things go behind, and the ceremony is supposed to be an hour before sunset, and the next thing you know, it's at sunset. Just being able to bring lighting into a situation and create something dynamic in the dark, it just changes things. And truthfully, I have church to attest to that because I photograph at church and it is pitch black in there. And you just have to search for like this little tiny bit of light and make it work. And then the next thing you know, you can use a camera phone or a flashlight and create something crazy.
Do you use flash when you're at the church?
Can't.
I was gonna say I don't think you do. And you still have amazing pictures. I love to see your pictures from church too.
We can also thank the denoise button for that as well.
Right?
But
Have good cameras. They can shoot at low light, and thank Lightroom for the denoise button.
no kidding.
Awesome. So, from your military background, you've mentioned some of the importance of putting emotions aside to carry out a mission. How does that discipline kind of influences the workflow that you have on a high pressure day of the wedding day?
Well, we talked about how it's good as bringing out emotion, but it's also really good to keep me calm because, as you know, things get behind, and sometimes other people feel like what they're doing is the most important when the reality is what's most important is the bride experiencing her wedding day without stress and remembering it in a good
Hmm.
light. And a lot of times, we both know some photographer who lost her mom, and I know that when I photographed her wedding, it was beautiful, but what she looks at the photos is that they had this wedding when they did last minute to make sure her mom was still alive. And so what can I help out of that situation? Like maybe not hers particularly, but you have a vendor, like a venue coordinator that owns the venue or works at the venue, and they have their particular idea of what the day's going to look like, and they're pushing a couple. I feel like I'm able to step in and help mitigate that without getting frustrated or stressed that my timeline isn't going to work out for their photos. And again, that the lighting stuff all ties into like what's going to happen is going to happen. Let's figure it out together. And I think being able to almost like pull yourself out of a situation and do like a 360, like how do we make everyone feel happy and keep the bride from being upset, and myself not having like a panic attack because the day's not going the way it's going. Because I mean, I'm sure you've done it, but I've cried on the way home from weddings sometimes. But I'm just like, at least I made it through that wedding, and I've been so blessed that that doesn't really happen often. But I feel like that's a big thing, is just learning how to like say, all right, I'm gonna put this in the back of my head. I'm gonna process it later, and right now we're gonna work on what's the most important, in that it's this couple getting down the aisle happily.
I think it's a lot that is asked of us, I think, in this profession, and that's probably why that's not for everybody. I feel like we have to have a really good balance between being very prepared, as prepared as you can be from a timeline standpoint, from being efficient. Maybe you have a shot list, whatever it is, you have a good flow of your work on the wedding day, and at the same time being as flexible and adaptable as you can possibly be, understanding that what you have to do that day is very dependable on a lot of other people, and how on time and accountable or late they are, and how the emotions are going through the day. It's a very high emotional day. Things can happen. But yeah, 100% we have to have a good, I feel like, emotional intelligence and being adaptable to go through that day and be the kind of the person that they can go to for a safe space and safe haven to like go through the day with a little bit more ease. So it's a lot for us to carry, which again, that's probably why a lot of people don't like shooting weddings. There's a lot going on. So
I got some really good advice. And, I think we all take experiences in our lives and we use them typically one of two ways moving forward. And I was told, each wedding you go to, each thing you experience, you have a tool belt, and you can either use that previous experience and put it in your tool belt and save it to make good use of it in the future and to be prepared for whatever comes up, or you can just leave it scattered around everywhere causing chaos. And to me, like, I want to take what I've learned in the military, take what I've learned through past experiences in shooting weddings before I even had any mind shooting them, and using them in a tool belt.
that's perfect. How do you guide your couples through the process of choosing maybe the right locations, proposes that really reflect their personality and their relationship, understanding that people are different, like we talked about earlier, while you still ensure that the images that you're going to create, we're going to withstand the test of time. They're not going to be too cheesy or too crazy or too 2024 maybe for when they look at it 20 years on the road.
Well, I think again, the questionnaire and the initial calls and all of that really helps me understand my clients and what they love. So again, that client in Ocala, they grew up around horses. Horses were super important to them. So finding a way that's like a big open pasture, or even stables or anything like that, trying to incorporate who they are in it. I have a couple who loves date nights. They always go to downtown St. Petersburg, which for us is like really, really cool. It's like a lot of historic homes, a lot of just really cool businesses, antique spots, a lot of really fun architecture, rooftops. So like if I know that that's where they love for a date night, and I try to ask them that initially, just because sometimes I connect with my clients and I want to say, hey, here's a gift card, go have a date, like enjoy. I know that that's where we should probably do their session, like what means something to them.
Which means you have to spend time getting to know your clients and actually talking to them. I feel like a lot of people are missing in their client experiences, taking the time to really get to know your clients and understand what makes them smile, what makes them excited, what makes them worried and fearful and tight. So all those things are important when you're then posing them for their session or the wedding day, or even just choosing locations to choose something that means something to them. Yeah.
For sure. And the same with wardrobe. I where the timeline examples is like a huge portal, and it has date night ideas and a Pinterest board full of outfits. And they're broken down by like color scheme and location and theme and all of that. And I think it's so important to feel confident. Like everyone comes in and they're like, we need this big flowy dress. But if you don't wear dresses every day, you're going to feel awkward, you know? And so just saying, hey, like you do what you're comfortable in. Send me pictures. I'll help you. Like lay everything out. Like let's walk through this together. This isn't just a hey, show up and we'll figure it out kind of thing. It's like a hey, we're going to figure it out together as we walk through it together, which also gains trust. So on the wedding day, if you're like, you want to go jump in that pool at the end in your dress? They're like, all right, I trust you. Like,
Let's do
yeah.
it. That's perfect. So wedding days can be long and very taxing on us. What are some of the strategies that you use to maintain your energy and focus through the day? Make sure that you're present and your creativity doesn't just fade away at the end of the day.
Well, I think one thing I also got from the military is like the ability to run on empty a lot.
Hmm.
So that is helpful, but I always keep high protein snacks. I am not a big caffeine girly. I actually don't drink coffee. I will have a tea in the morning usually. But keeping hydrated, I think people miss that so much. Like we talk about how we're not going to eat for 8 hours, but you really have to find a moment to just like eat a granola bar or a protein bar. I put liquid
Hmm.
IV in my water, and they make sugar-free options too. Just having something that is healthy to me is really key about getting through it. And I mean, I am that person like I don't sit until I eat.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. And I feel like people invest a lot of money in us, and I want them to get what they're invested for. I don't want them to be like, "Where's the photographer? Like, why did they miss this?" And so just, I mean, I'll say, "Hey, I'm gonna go to the bathroom really quick and eat a protein bar, and I'll be back in 5 minutes. Lindsay's over here if you need anything." And then we just disappear when we. And that's another thing, communicating with vendors, planners, the questionnaire. It says we prefer to eat when you eat. Please communicate this with your catering company because no one wants pictures with people eating anymore. Like I tell my clients, like we're past that. Like if it's super important to you, I'm absolutely going to do it. But like here's X, Y, and Z of all the fun things we can do to get everyone in your pictures instead. And we can eat when you eat, and nothing is missed, and nobody has pictures of them shoving food in their mouth.
Yes, that's a whole other podcast, girl, talking about when do we eat
We
on
could
the
walk
wedding
from
day,
Clearwater to Jacksonville together and still be talking about that.
right? Oh gosh. So after the wedding, the workflow shifts to editing, delivering. So in a whole different mindset right now. Can you talk a little bit about your post-wedding process and how you decide what images go and what don't, to keep that essence of your couple in there?
Well, I think for all the other photographers listening, especially ones that are new, and I know you can attest to this, culling can make you look like a completely different photographer than you are. So just assuring that you are delivering something that is the most flattering and beautiful from the couple is the number one key. But getting there is the process. And for me, I learned culling through a mentor and then hiring an editor when I can't submit 800 photos because it's going to cost me more than my studio to edit them. But overall, when I sit down to eat, because I can't ever stop going, I sit there and I rate the photos in my camera.
Ah.
So I used to shoot Canon, and there's a rating button right on the back. And when I switched to Sony, I created a custom function button, and I will sit there and I will rate them. And so the minute I pull them into the software, my highlights are already there, or my reference images for the editor, and I'm moving to AI. And so I'm learning how to make that workflow as well. And it provides like, I mean, I have a 90-day turnaround. It sucks to wait 3 months for your wedding photos. So at least there's like something that they get. And I kind of joke like we live in like a microwave world, and really I'm a crock pot kind of person. So like I take my time. I want them to like go enjoy their honeymoon and come back and then come into the studio and see their images together, not like while they're busy during their day microwaving things. And but at the same time, we do live in a microwave world. And so I want them to have something right away. And for selfish reasons, like why have a cell phone picture for your profile picture when you can have a wedding picture in 24 to 48 hours? And I'm just talking about like a dozen. And that usually makes them happy. And then they come in to the studio and they see their photos on a wall on the TV and they're like, "Oh my gosh, I remember that." And then they just kind of forget about the other stuff, throughout the process, and you get to re-remind them at the end like, "Oh my gosh, I totally forgot that that happened," or "I didn't know he was doing that while I was doing this."
Yeah, a lot of good. Just going back to picking and choosing, finding the best of the best to present back to your clients. I know we've been using AI a lot in the photography world recently. I struggle. I use AI for some of the editing. I cannot have AI cool anything for me. I have to be the one that goes through every single picture because sometimes we take a picture with something in our minds for the end product, and the settings might be weird compared to the other photos, or maybe you were thinking of a silhouette shot, so I don't want that to be discarded as something that it's not a good photo when I really knew what I wanted to do with that. So I have a hard time trusting AI for some of that stuff right now.
Yeah, I let AI cull, but then I go right back in and I'm like, let me just swap that one out and fix that one, and I'm going to move that one into my favorites. And yeah, so I'm right there with you. But I also think all of that is just, as long as we're communicating with our clients, they're fine with the wait. Like the initial call, I talk about delivery times at their engagement session. I talk about delivery times. And I will say, I do not talk about delivery times on their wedding day. I don't
Oh yeah, no.
trust them with it. I might show them the back of the camera and be like, oh my gosh, guys, look at this. But I don't do that. But when I send the sneak peek email, I re-remind them. I say, hey, here's your sneak peeks. Here's how to download them. This is what you should expect over the next few weeks. Here's a link to some date night ideas. Go have fun on a date after your honeymoon.
Yeah,
See you in 6
perfect.
weeks. Yeah.
Keep busy while I work on your pictures.
And they're like, okay, just want to see how they're doing.
Yeah, I rarely get that kind of call or text from my clients. It's again of just setting those expectations at the beginning saves you a lot of back and forth.
Absolutely. And it gives
Yeah.
us more time to focus on getting their images done instead of answering their questions. So, I mean, a little bit of, hey, it'll be ready in 2 weeks goes a long
Yes,
way.
perfect. Do you get some formal feedback from your clients after they get their wedding photos as far as anything that you can improve in your business or more of a review of your services on the wedding day? What do you really usually go for?
So after they come in for their image reveal, I email their gallery as they walk out the door. And in that, I definitely ask for reviews. I believe, especially as a business owner, a lot of times you don't get because you don't ask. And it's all about the way to ask. And so I definitely ask, and I will always leave room. And I walk away. Most of my clients start as clients and leave as friends. And so, I mean, I just say, hey, I'm always open for feedback. You let me know what you like, what you don't like, whatever. And we communicate ahead of time too. Like as we go into the engagement session, I don't want to set a precedent of like what you don't like about you, but I make a joke like, hey, I really don't like my ears. So I always try and have my ears covered. So let me know if your ears, like your hair is behind your ears right now. How do you feel about that? That kind of thing. And so when we go into the wedding day, I don't really get that negative feedback because we've already worked through it in a way that's not like draining and depressing and making them think about, their flaws that they feel that they.
Right. So, one thing I've been asking everybody on the podcast in the spirit of going from an accidental CEO into an intentional, successful boss is that we have to learn from failures. What was one of the biggest failures that you've had that then turned into a big lessons learned for you?
Oh man, I think who you surround yourself with, who you hire, who you partner with in the industry. We have such amazing community here, and nationally, really. I mean, we're 4 hours away, and I know I could text you and just be like, "Can you look at this for me?" And you would be like, "Okay." But I think that there's trusting your intuition is really important in the industry. I don't believe it's important to be guarded, but I think it's important to protect what's important to you. And I definitely learned that the hard way when I went in to mentor someone and they took everything I had and turned around and used it to mentor other people, and it wasn't even their stuff, or just hiring a person that reaches out to your clients to try and get them as theirs when they work for you. I think, but there's more good than there is bad. So, but that's definitely my mistake, is just trusting my gut a little bit more.
Yeah, I love it. Tell everybody where they can find you if they want use some of your services and learn more from you.
Well, my website, www.madnessphotography.com, but Madness has two D's in it. It reflects my name. Everyone's joking, like, you spelled it wrong. I'm like, no, my name's Maddy with two D's. Yeah.
You don't get it? Come on.
Or Instagram at madness.photography, and the same with TikTok.
Perfect. Thank you so much for being on the show with me. I loved our conversation. I think we hit a lot of very important points when it comes to wedding photography, and I appreciate you teaching and sharing all the tips with us.
I'm so grateful you're having me. And seriously, like I've told you before, but I'm so proud of you for doing all of this. Like, it takes massive guts to take such big leaps of faith, and especially in such small times. Like, you're really doing such a good job about putting yourself out there, and it's really inspiring to a lot of us.
Well, thank you. You're so sweet. Well, thank you everybody for listening, and I can't wait to see you guys again next week for another episode of the Accidental CEO podcast. Bye. And that's a wrap for today's episode of the Accidental CEO podcast. Thanks for hanging out with us in the world where creativity and business strategy collide. I am Nata Salvatori, thrilled to have shared this time with you. Remember, every episode is a step closer to mastering the art of being an accidental CEO. So don't miss out. Hit subscribe, drop us a sweet review, and spread the word to your creative tribe. Your next big breakthrough could be just one episode away. Join us next time for more insights, laughs, and actionable tips. Keep pushing boundaries, dreaming big, and embracing the beautiful chaos of entrepreneurship. Here's to make magic happen in your business and beyond.